Hello everybody, and welcome to Chaplin Talks. So today we have a very special guest, which is my dad. Say hello, Dad.
Hi, son.
Thank you for coming on.
No problem.
So, I have a list of questions for you.
Wow. I didn't know if people are that curious.
I'm sure you've heard some of these, but let's do it. Okay. So, what should we go for first? Okay. Someone called Sarah Garland wants to know, was Charlie Chaplin a strict dad?
Yes, he was. Well, he was strict in the way of he let us do whatever we wanted. He didn't say, I want you to be a doctor or a teacher, but he was more strict on our education. He wanted us to do really well at school and very strict on our manners.
Yeah, I know. You always told me that.
Well, the thing is, if you have good manners, people like you more, you know?
It always helps. Okay. Donna Ambrosi is asking, as a child with your father, what would you say impressed you about his movies?
Well, the universality of it. The little tramp, everyone knows, everyone loves. And, I love to say is, everyone has a little tramp in their heart. So everyone recognizes themselves in him.
Do you remember the first time that you realized that you're growing up with a famous dad?
Obviously you realize it gently because you go to school and your friends kind of say, hey, Charlie Chaplin's son and stuff. So obviously you kind of realize it. But not the weight of it, but the realization of it really happens now that I'm here, 130 years after his death, speaking about him. It's quite extraordinary.
After he's born, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, yes, exactly.
In case you don't know, my dad he was a sound engineer in a studio in Switzerland, and he worked with some pretty big names. So someone is asking, how did Eugene come to work with David Bowie? And what albums was he involved in?
Well, it's pure luck because basically I'm from theater. I'm a stage manager. And I worked in the Geneva Opera House, left there and went.
I was going to say you went to RADA in London, right?
Yeah, right. That's right, to be a stage manager.
Yeah.
Then ended up at the Geneva Opera House doing opera and ballet. Mm-hmm. And then I left there and went to the casino in Montreux, which was burned down. You hear about that in Smoke on the Water from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And was rebuilt. And inside that, in there was supposed to be a lot of entertainment and stuff. So I applied to go there, but there wasn't that much entertainment happening. And in the same time, a studio was being built with all the latest technology at the time. And so I applied to get in there. And because I had some kind of basic knowledge of sound, they let me in, and I started off by being a T-boy and then an assistant engineer and eventually an engineer there. And because it was the latest studios which were opened, everyone wanted to go there. So the very first clients we had was the Stones, the Black and Blue album.
Yeah.
Then there was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There was Yes, many others. And one day we got a booking from David Bowie. And funny enough, David Bowie is the first artist I ever joined a fan club when I was doing my stage management.
Oh, really?
And you'd buy an LP and it would say join the fan club, which I did. It's the only person I ever did that with. And funny enough, so many years later, I was going to meet him in the studio. But, you know, it was funny because he knocked on the door and I opened the studio door and he said, "Can I come in?" And I said no to him because I didn't recognize him. I said, "No, please stay out." You know, he was badly shaved and all that. And I had the image of, you know, Ziggy Stardust going to come in and stuff. So I really recognized him. And he said, "But I booked the place." I said, "Look, I'm sorry, but it's David Bowie, you know, we already have a client coming here." And they say, "But it's me." I said, "I'm sorry." So we started off like that.
Yeah. And then you guys kind of became friends, no?
We became friends because he started to live in Switzerland and not too far from the house. And I think it was a time of his life. He just divorced, and he was a bit lonely in Switzerland. I'm guessing, you know. And the fact I invited him over, he met my mother and stuff. So we went on holidays all together and stuff like that.
That's really cool. And what about the story of Under Pressure? Can you?
Well, that's many years later when I had a birthday party, and Queen allowed me to take off from the studio for this birthday party I was going to do on the terrace of the house. And I invited David over as well. I think Queen and David knew each other from previous years, but just hadn't seen each other for a long time. So eventually Queen came up, Freddie came up, David came up, and you know, the normal food and cake and drink. And then Freddie told David, "Come to the studio. I want you to make you listen to some of our new songs." And they went down there, and obviously they started fooling around. And that evening, Under Pressure was born.
I can imagine them all going to the studio after the party, quite drunk.
Well, it's the kind of thing which always happened, you know, between artists and.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't tell you this because I wanted to save it for here, but I was on Friday, I was recording an interview down in London, and I borrowed a camera off a friend of mine. And he has a big vinyl connection. So I was like, "Have you got the Heroes album?" And he is like, "Actually, I do." So he pulled out the Heroes album, and I looked on the back. And when you look on the back, it says engineered by, or assistant engineered by, David Richards and Eugene Chaplin.
With Tony Visconti as the producer.
Yeah. So I took a photo of the back of it. So I'll put it on here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking for those vinyls. It's just to be able to show my kids and to say, "Look, I'm not lying to you," you know, because they're all kind of looking at me saying, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, no, funny. Okay, so here's a question from Jason Allen. "Eugene, would you like to see a television series about your father's life and legacy on the streaming services like Netflix? If so, what would you like to see in the series? What aspect of Charles's life? And bonus question, who would play young Eugene in the TV series?"
Look, I'd love to play myself. You know, and they can Photoshop it and make me look younger. Look, I think a mini-series would be great because Chaplin's life is over 88 years, so there's enough content.
There's definitely enough to talk about for sure. I mean,
and I think the Victorian days when he was a kid is fascinating. The workhouse and all that should be developed. I think the early Hollywood stuff, it must be fascinating as well. And as well, seeing him shoot to fame, and he didn't even realize it. He was kind of surprised. I think when he went back to London, that suddenly there was all these crowds there. He didn't realize that his fame got there before he knew about it. And No, just yeah, it would be. I think it. You know, it's a fascinating the making the start of Hollywood and all that, and is all a fascinating time. The 20th century is a fascinating time.
So Una's, your mom, my grandmother's family, she's the daughter of Eugene O'Neill, and some of the cousins, I guess you'd call it, there are cousins, have reached out. So Sean O'Neill has reached out, and he says, did Oona ever tell you stories about her family in the US? And do you have any favorite guests that came to visit the manoir?
Yes, she mentioned her father a lot. She gave me books and all. She really missed her dad a lot, and she loved her dad very much. And I think she loved her dad that much. That's why they called me Eugene.
Mm.
But specific stories, maybe she did, but I don't remember. It's such a long time ago. I don't specifically remember. But she always talked about the family in the States. She always talked about Bermuda. Funnily enough, I went down to Connecticut, to New England, and I did a tourist promo video to promote, the Eugene O'Neill's house there and the Eugene O'Neill theater. But yeah, well, of course, now I'm much more aware of it, and especially with Facebook and all that. I'm in contact with some of them.
Going back to Sean's second part of the question, by the way, is do you have any favorite guests that came to visit your dad?
Oh, of course, yeah. The one I remember the most, and I thought was, when I think about it, is quite funny, is when Truman Capote came over. There was Noel Coward, there was my father, there was Truman Capote. And Truman Capote was more a friend of my mum's. But he came over and he was over enthusiastic because he was writing a book about the death penalty. And to wind up my father, he was saying to my father, it's fantastic. I went to a few executions in America, and they have the gas chamber. And it's a marvelous gas because they just release one drop of it, and the people are out in no time at all and don't suffer. He says, it's absolutely great. And my father was there kind of like trying not to fall into the provocation,
Yeah. That's hilarious. Because I know that Truman Capote was he was quite eccentric, wasn't he? Like he was definitely a character.
Oh, I remember he arrived with red trousers and red suit on. Kind of very extravagant man.
Ben Watling, he's a friend of mine.
Oh dear.
He's a friend of mine. He says, have you got any embarrassing stories about your son Spencer?
Oh, many. Many. But I can't tell them here.
Good. It'll be edited out anyway. D. Breathlack says, I wonder what Charlie and Einstein talked about.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Well, there's the famous story about Einstein being invited by my father to see city lights in Berlin.
Yeah, which there are
the
photos
30th.
of.
Yeah. And they were both in the car and driving up to the cinema. Einstein said to my dad, what is extraordinary? I'm quoting it by memory, but it's something like, it's quite extraordinary because you don't speak, but everyone understands you. And he says, and my father answered back to him, well, it's just as extraordinary than you because you speak and no one understands you.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And here's one from Tom Moran, who says, this is a bit of a, I think, of a full-on Chaplin fan question, which is, says, will you do for Shoulder Arms what you've done for the Gold Rush? Allow the original silent version to exist in tandem with Chaplin's revised version? Because there are two versions of the Gold Rush, right?
Exactly. Well, the family, because it's a family decision, but I think the family is following my dad's wish of having his last version out. If not, he wouldn't have redone it.
Mm-hmm. So it's the Shoulder Arms, though. Is it the version I have no idea. It's the version he's talking about. The
Well,
later
it was
version.
part of the Chaplin. It was part of the Chaplin review. Because
Okay.
when Shoulder Arms came out, it came out on its own, and then it was included in the Chaplin review.
Okay.
And he composed music later for it and all that. And a lot of people ask for the original one silent because they would love to put their own music on it.
Yeah.
We're saying, but what we're saying is, my dad composed the music, so that's the music which should go with it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's a matter of opinion, but it's difficult to please everyone.
Yeah. And so I've been reading up, obviously, about Oona and stuff, but it seems to me that she seemed to be like the real backbone of everything.
I talk about my dad's life in 3 chapters. The first one is his childhood, which is all about surviving, more or less. I'm generalizing. Then you have America, which is success, making money, and he was very ambitious, and he knew exactly what he wanted, and took no shit from anyone.
Yeah.
Basically. But that's the second one. The third part is, of course, he meets my mum, and it's the exile I hate that name. He moves to Switzerland. And with Switzerland, my mum, I guess the family as well, he started to really enjoy life. Now the circle is done. From the man who was so focused and knew exactly what he wanted and all, when he met my mother, suddenly he could not do anything without her. He loved her so much. He wanted her next to him all the time. So when he wrote his autobiography, she helped him out. When he would write music for his silent film, she would help him out, and she would give him advice or tell him, this is good or not good, and everything he did. And even going to the Oscars, he didn't want to go there because he was still very bitter by how he was treated. But my mother convinced him, but she went with him, and if you see the video of it, she even turns up on stage with him, because 5 minutes before he wasn't going to go, and she said, "Look, walk on and I'll come behind you." So no, for that was really, really nice. Me personally, I lived in a bubble, because I'm born in Switzerland, and I saw this. My mother and father love each other very much. So I was brought up with that, and I really thought being in a relationship was that.
Yeah.
So when I had my first girlfriend and we had our first fight, I was totally traumatized by that. I've seen that only happens in movies. That doesn't happen in real life. And boy, by experience afterwards, I realized that was the other way around.
Yeah. And do you remember going on any, seeing your dad work on film sets or anything?
The only time I saw him work was in the Countess of Hong Kong. I was in boarding school, and on my holidays, I was allowed to go to London. Pinewood Studios where he filmed that. And yeah, maybe I wasn't that interested to know how he worked because my dad is working, I'll let him do what he has to do. But I remember being there and seeing the set of the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, the big volcano and stuff. That was in the set right next to the countess. It was quite funny. And I remember Marlon Brando, who obviously had his own character, but it was really sweet with me and great.
Yeah, funny.
And of course, Sophia Loren, she was absolutely great too.
Yeah, and it's funny that the main thing you remember is going to the set next door.
Yeah, because your dad is always your dad, and it was fun seeing the Countess being done and seeing some of the trick filming they did and stuff with false perspectives of corridors and stuff like that, and of course, and the boat outside on the artificial lake, and all that was good.
Mm.
But James Bond was James Bond.
And I'm sure everyone wants to know is like, do you have a favorite film, a favorite Chaplin film?
Well, truthfully, no, because I really, really love each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it all depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Have you
Of
seen all of
course,
them?
yes.
Yeah.
And I must say, I think what is interesting is when you look at the first ones, you see the first Chaplins, it's more like clowning and it's more like slapstick comedy. And gently, feelings come into it, and then he becomes more and more social. And then you get to to the Great Dictator where he starts speaking, and so on. So it's all very interesting. Of course, maybe the best one, the most perfect one, or for me, the two most perfect ones are one is City Lights, because how can you not cry at the end of it?
And it's his masterpiece, isn't it? Really,
It's a masterpiece, and of course, Limelight,
mm.
which is so beautiful. But as well, I love The Cure. I love the Fireman. I love Payday. All those short ones are absolutely fantastic and really so funny. They had a kind of madness about them.
My favorite scene of Limelight is the Buster Keaton at the end,
Yeah,
playing the piano.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's true, at that time they had special performances in remembering such artists who were forgotten. So they would make a few bucks to survive, And apparently Buster Keaton already then was in different kinds of troubles and financial troubles and stuff like that. And my mum always said to me, "Oh yeah, Charlie did that. Took him because of that
To help him out.
to help him out. Even though, of course, he was a great artist."
if people haven't gone to visit Chaplin's World, which is the house where my dad grew up, I spent some time there as well. How does it feel for the house to be turned into a museum?
Well, there is always a demand for it. And well, I think once the family agreed, why not? It's nice, you know. It's strange. I'm not saying it's not strange, but it's strange seeing people coming in. You feel like, hey, get out, you know, private property. But no, it's nice. And what I feel is very touching about it is I haven't seen one criticism about it. Everyone loves it.
Yeah. No, they've done a really, really, really good job, I think.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Well, that's it. There you go. Thank you for all your questions. There you go. See, it was easy. I ignored the hard ones.
Well, you just didn't want me to tell the embarrassing ones of you. That was a deal.
No, thanks a lot, Dad.
Okay, take care.
You too.
See you soon.
See you. Bye.